Okay, let's hope that this this app doesn't like collapse or whatever with my phone sliding off like the last time. But anyways, I think it's day 4 of this streak, and it seems like things are kind of starting to settle. I'm actually starting to get some momentum going. I'm basically just trying to keep myself busy and working through whatever I'm working on. I've kind of, hit pause on the whole like game development thing right now. I might double back and go do some C++ work, and I'll have to fish around on YouTube to find enough of these tutorials where they talk about, image, not generation, but like working with like PNG files and that sort of thing, and how to like get your resources loaded up on your jar file. Before I'm able to just, have an actual like game there that I can send out to people who might want to play it. But right now, my mindset is really focused on the whole like career and job sort of thing. Because looks like someone's working on their like van over there. But anyways, you might hear the sort of popping sound or rumbling sound or so. It's from over there. But anyways, yeah, I'm focusing more on the career type stuff, which the Java and C++ stuff would help, and it definitely kind of got my mind jump started to actually working on something and getting the ball rolling. But so some things have happened today. Nothing really bad per se. Nothing bad actually, but so I got an email back from the old company for this temporary position in reagent manufacturing, and I'm gonna have a phone interview tomorrow, 10 a.m. We'll see how it goes. I'm not stressing too much. I just, I think I may mention in the last video, but a lot of my mentality right now is just to have some sort of stable biotech job, even if I'm still in manufacturing, just for a while. Not, I don't want to be doing that kind of stuff for too long, because I think if you get beyond like 2 years or so, it can just kind of be hard to convince whoever's hiring for an engineering position to let you in, because they might look at you and be like, oh, this guy's set in his ways as a manufacturing associate or manufacturing person, and there's some level of stigma, which whether some people might say it's justified, some people might say it's I try to slow down my words, but some people might say it's not justified versus others saying it's justified. But there's sort of a stigma as to if you're in manufacturing, you're like the grunt, not too bright, you can push buttons and pull levers, and it's almost like the engineers and scientists, it's kind of like them handing over their prize toy or their prize machine or their prize project or whatever to the manufacturing folks, and having to cross their fingers and hope that this these manufacturing associates or technicians they don't break anything. And it's like, okay, we gotta design this to be what they might call idiot proof or so, or foolproof. Looking at you like that, and it's kind of if you're trying to get out of there and prove that you're not one of the fools or one of the dum-dums, it can kind of be difficult. Though sometimes in some spots like you might get an opportunity to prove yourself, but I'm looking at it like I gotta have a heck of a lot more on my resume, including a GitHub account, just to basically have something that someone can look at and go, okay, that's interesting. Might want to talk to them about this or that, And I'm trying to accept the fact that because of a variety of factors, like I'm gonna have my fair share of hurdles to overcome that others might not have to, for whatever reason. I spent enough time complaining about that sort of stuff, and I may in the future have my rants about it, but right now I'm just trying to instead of wasting time on that, using time on that. I'm trying to use the time on other stuff. Like I have this programmable PLC, programmable logic controller boot camp on Udemy that I've paid for and I'm working through. I'm about halfway through it. Yeah, I'm at the halfway point. I'm trying to get through the rest of it ASAP. I can put that stuff on my resume then. I can also hopefully find some way to add the files to my GitHub and write little readmes and explain, okay, this is what this program does, and etc., that sort of deal. After that, again, I'm gonna move into some coding type stuff, because the automated liquid handling robot, programming, that's going to be in June. I've been in contact today with, finally, got around to emailing the guy I was in contact with before from the training group over at the company, saying that, hey, I got the form filled out, I'm ready to register essentially for this class. And it's the intro to everything else. It's like, this is the class you got to take to be able to take the rest of them. And he responded back, and reserved a spot for me. But fortunately, and I'm pretty sure like why this has happened, but fortunately they hiked the prices back up to the usual before, because like last year, this is like sort of the irony. If I'd had the money back then, it would have cost me less, but I didn't have the money back then. So now it's costing me more, but they basically took it from $2,500 up to $5,000. So I'm having to move some funds around to pay for that. I have over $5,000 in my account, enough to pay for that, but I'm having to move some money out of some other accounts, out of basically like some old retirement accounts a couple of them that I had from last couple of employers. It's not that much. It's maybe like $4,000, let's say, total. But it'll be enough with my current cost of living that I could live off that for at least a few months, if worse came to worse. But obviously, I'm planning on getting a job. I'm just trying to move that money into my account right now, so I'll just have that just in case. I won't have to be worrying about that, and I can replenish my savings account, bring it up back to $1,000. But I will be able to pay for this. And, in other cases, I might hold off and be like, whatever, I'll use this money for other, things or whatever. But, I've said it before in some other videos recently, but I really feel like I'm in this spot right now where it's like, I gotta make that leap. I gotta take some risks. I gotta take some chances. In 5-10 years, I might not be able to do that. In a year, I might not be able to do that. 6 months, I don't know what exactly the future holds, but truth is, like I said, I don't want to get typecast or typeset into just being another manufacturing associate, even if they promoted me to up to grade or tier 2 or tier 3 eventually. Like, I don't want to be doing that kind of work. I want to be getting to the engineering side, and it's sort of like, I've got to make this whole situation of getting fired from the last job into sort of one of those, it turned out it was the best thing that ever happened to me career-wise, because, I ended up with this fat stack of cash, and I used that to pay for these certifications and courses, and over the summer I bounced back academically, and et cetera, I flew straight forward, from that point onward, so to speak, not just upward. I gotta use this time and this, this money and this opportunity as, something to really make that leap. And one of the biggest problems in the past has been, like, when you're working, especially as a manufacturing associate, you can make good money, but it's sort of like, you get your nose to the grindstone. I know I get into this sort of mindset. It's very unitary focus, where I'm just focused on making that money, making as much money as I can, and it just becomes a matter of, like, getting like obsessed with this paying off debt stuff, which I'm still on about. So much of my reason for being willing to just jump back into a job at the the one before the last employer is that if I can do what I did at that place before when I worked there first time around. I could have, let me see, I could have the next student loan paid off, which would leave just 2 student loan accounts. So I basically, I would let my uncle out the hook essentially if I was able to pay that off in the next few months, and I could send him the documents showing that, hey, it's been paid in full, that debt's been taken care of. That would leave me with only 2 student loan accounts, which it's been a point of getting to that I've really dreamed about, where I would just have those 2. Just kind of like what it would say about where I'd gotten to in life and that sort of thing. And assuming that I don't need to sell the stock that I have, and that the price bounces back up, because it's gone down, and part of it's been because of the market, state of the market right now. Some of it may have been some other issues, maybe with the company itself, but if I don't have to sell that in order to just keep a roof over my head, and the capital gains tax which they're raising, it wouldn't take out too much of the profit, so to speak, or the what do you call it, the proceeds from the sale. The plan would be to take that cash and throw it at my car loan, and then it would probably take me another 3 to 4 months of just like the same old working to the bone, to the grindstone, throwing as much money as I can at the loan to have this car paid off. And that would put me at a really nice spot. I mean, I still have, I think, about 55 to 60K of debt at that point, but like where I would be at right then, financially speaking, and even life-wise, it would just be like, okay, really making some progress. Can see the light at the end of the tunnel, all that sort of stuff. And honestly, like every time I pay off one of these student loans, it feels like I'm becoming a bit more free from the past. I don't have to see those bills and go, oh, this is what this was for and what was going on in my life at that point, and blah blah blah. But that's kind of where I'm at right now. And like I said, I'm trying to keep myself busy, because that's really the only way, I think, to avoid just going back. Maybe neurochemically, I'm also resetting that I'm not as interested in that sort of stuff, PMO as I was when, I first relapsed. And when you go through like 6, 7, 8, 9 months, whatever, free from that, like it's if you do end up relapsing, like it's gonna have that much of a stronger effect on you, just because like you're not in that sort of state, I think. But I think that I'll be able to say that I'm actually getting momentum and on a streak and that sort of thing, and maybe start making daily vlogs again if I'm at a week or 2 weeks or so, because then that'll be some decent progress. But assuming I get this PLC programming boot camp out of the way, I really want to dive into Python and R, definitely. I've been looking through Udemy for other like programming boot camps, and those are the next 2 that I really want to go after. Outside of that, there was a statistical programming course that I started it's close to 2 years ago, actually. I think I got through about a third or a fourth of it, but it was this free course with the company's called SAS. I know that kind of sounds funny to some folks, but basically it's a company that makes statistical process control software, and one of their main mainline products is called JUMP. It's an acronym, JMP. I'm not sure exactly what it stands for off the top of my head, but essentially they have a free course. So there's like 3 or 4 courses they have, from what I can tell, I've seen, but It's like the free one they offer is statistical thinking for industrial problem solving. And, the idea is to complete that, and then their certifications. They have 3 of those. They have one that goes with that course, but you have to pay about $180 to take that certification. So I would want to go back and take that and complete that, finish that up, reactivate it if they allow me to reactivate it, and pick up where I left off and get that done. It's one of those things that you sort of look through all these job listings, and it's sort of like the the nice to haves or the must haves. To me, for a lot of these chemical engineering positions, they talk a lot about Python and R, and SQL. There's some talk about Scala and Java, depending upon the applications. But then they also talk about statistical process control, and they mention a lot about JUMP. And I've worked with it a little bit, but being able to slap that certification on there, or all of them, would really be great. It would grease the wheels for me. So I got all this work cut out for me in the future. Right now I'm just trying to make sure I got money flowing into my bank account, and if I have one of these schedules where it's you get 3 days off every week or 4 days off, that'd be pretty nice. I was honestly able to function a lot better in that kind of a setup, because it wasn't like I was trying to squeeze a course in these this very narrow time slot. It was it was a case where half of the week I would have to have off from work basically, and that would mean that I could have entire days where it was just for that class, just that entire day, or even 2 or 3 days in a row, just for the class, whatever class I was taking. And I think that's a large part of why I ended up getting an A- in the other class, and versus this one right now, where I'm basically taking the L on that and having to go retake it. Probably next spring in all likelihood. In part because I would want to knock out some other courses before I went and touch that again. In part because there's some sort of subject matter that let's say Newtonian mechanics that I would need to really review and get my mind wrapped around again. Stuff that I remember to a certain extent, but not enough to be able to perform up to par. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm gonna head back in. Want to get something to drink actually before I go back in, and I'm still on my diet. I'm trying to take this seriously. I didn't want to, for my second meal today, I didn't want to walk to the other side of the city, basically, other side of town, so to speak. So I just got a bunch of beef hot dogs and dill pickles, and it's kind of like trying to approximate a low-carb version of sort of the taste of a Chicago-style hot dog, because I'm from Chicago, and I really miss a lot of the food culture. And obviously you get on YouTube and you start watching those food videos, and the good ones where the host isn't freaking annoying, and she's not constantly pestering the restaurant owner for the secret recipe or whatever the heck. Those ones are cool. But I end up watching ones on some of the food from Chicago, and I'm like, oh man, I miss Chicago. I miss that part at least. The food culture and some of the sights, and the environment, or the weather to a certain extent. Lake Michigan, and et cetera, et cetera. But so I kind of try to approximate that in a low carb sense, with just getting some regular beef franks, heating those up, and then having those with some dill pickles, and then I think I'm going to throw some mustard on as well. Yeah. And I've been checking up on my folks. I talked to my grandma on Sunday, and she doesn't sound like she's doing that well. She is 90, but it sounds like she got like a cut on her mouth and might have gotten infected, and she was having a headache and all that. So I insisted that she, get back to the doctor as soon as she can and try and get some more antibiotics, because she ran out of them. And a similar situation had with my grandpa, and it's one of the reasons he died so young was, the antibiotics ran out, or the doctor decided to take him off these, sort of backup antibiotics or so, and then the infection came back with a vengeance, and he passed away. And I'm not wanting that to happen anytime soon with my grandma, because I haven't seen her for years. She's my grandma. She's the last of my grandparents who's still alive. And, I kind of get a bit, I don't want to be like superstitious or even a little stitious, but I kind of get a little concerned talking about it even. But it's like talking to her, it's like, it's a link to another era, another time. And it's a link to a lot of things that I miss from the past. And I could talk to her, and she may remember when she was younger, like all these major historical events, like FDR giving his, December the 7th, 1941 speech, or, seeing her brother who joined the Navy, was an officer, him in his uniform heading off to war, and hearing about the different, battles and what was going on, and, historical events and stuff of that nature. Then it's just, and just even a link to a era that was just different. You hear about folks talking about the 1950s and 60s, 1970s, 1940s, 30s, 20s, and if you have a handful of those people still around, you can literally talk to them like, what was it like, for your average person, not watching a newsreel, not watching a documentary, but literally sitting there talking to someone, going like, so what was it like? How did people think about this? How did people feel about this? And when you heard about XYZ happening, like, how did that affect you? Like, I know I think from what I can recall, like, I think my mom, she was still a kid, when, like, for instance, when JFK was assassinated, and I think she still even has some, like, vague memories of, like, kind of like, first memories as a kid. She has a handful of those memories from when that happened, or when Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin, landed on the moon, and who was it? Michael Collins, he's orbiting in the not the capsule, but it actually was a capsule, but when he was orbiting around the moon, and they were landing, like the TV broadcast, like my mom remembers that, and you kind of, you have these people around for a certain amount of time, and it's like, okay, you can talk to them about that, and it seems like this, I don't know what it is, because, I think about my grandpa, for instance, and serving World War II, and, like, all these emotions kind of come up, thinking about, like that generation, the generation of the old way, and whether or not, there were definitely flaws from the older generation, their ways of doing things. I mean, you can point them out all you want to. I think all we hear these days are the flaws, all we hear these days are the bad things, and oh, they did this, and they'll group everybody into a single group and say it's everybody in that group that did this, or they helped it, or they aided and abetted it, or whatever. But I think about some of the movies I've seen where you have some guys, he's starting to get into middle age or so, he's talking about his father or his grandfather, or you see some movie about you see some movie about some Native American talking about when he was a kid and his grandfather, sat him down around the campfire, and they talked about the old days, and his grandfather was a kid when Sitting Bull was still around, or talking about how life was back then, and passing on his knowledge and his wisdom to him, and this unbroken chain of transmission of knowledge and wisdom from antiquity all the way up to the present. And I think about that. I think about how my grandpa died when I was so young, and I don't want to be angry about it. I'm sad about it, because there's so much I think that was lost. That whole idea of losing something so intangible from the past, and sort of this line of tradition and I don't know what, substantiality just sort of fading away. One of the reasons why way back when I was a teenager I wanted to join the Navy as an officer, I was kind of sort of I was sort of blending the influence from my father's side of the family, my mother's side of the family. Because my father's side of the family, they very much emphasize get that college degree, make it in engineering, science, technology, engineering, mathematics, something practical, something cool, something interesting, something that's gonna keep your mind fired up and going, and you'll be able to do all these great cool things and all that. But then my mom's side, it'd be okay, maybe more, even more practical, hands-on, salt of the earth sort of approach. Combining those two. But so much of the reason why I wanted to join the Navy, especially as an officer, was to carry on this tradition of my family, because pretty much every generation of my family, they've served in the military at some point. It was something you did because you were a man and you were an American, and this is your thing to do. You put your time in to defend the nation, and I think my mom's generation is the only generation where they didn't have someone do that. I think my uncle tried, but there was some bad decision making on his part, from what I understood, that he didn't get to complete his term or get through training or something. But it was almost me taking that mantle on my own shoulders, and kind of grandpa's not around anymore, but wherever you are, not wherever you are, but if you can hear me, grandpa, I'm gonna take up the mantle of this family tradition, and I'm gonna carry on your work. I'm gonna carry on what you did. I'm gonna keep this thing alive. I'm not gonna let this die. Not in my generation, I'm not going to let that happen. And sadly enough, I failed at it at that point in time. And it's something that still is, itched away at me, so to speak. That, I get my life together, I get my finances, my act together, my physique, my health together, get my education together. It's more than just the whole astronaut NASA thing. It's a tribute to my grandfather, to my grandpa, and trying to sort of almost repay a debt that I feel that I owe him, because all the things I've known about World War II, or learned about World War II, and I've learned about the building of this country, this building up of this nation into an economic powerhouse, and all the things that we essentially inherited from him and his generation. And yeah, some of them weren't as savory as we might have wanted to say, but I'd much rather focus in on the positives, because I think we spend enough time focusing on the negatives, and those things do need to be done away with and replaced with things which are better. But I also try to look to their positive legacy and wanting to carry that on, and it's sort of a thought in the back of my mind, right now, everything that I'm working on, everything I'm working towards, the things that I'm afraid of losing, the things that I've lost, the things that I want to build in the future, come hell or high water, and what I'm trying to do with my life, and I suppose if I'm able to kind of be in this state of mind and not be focused on the girls who can't appreciate this kind of stuff, it's just in their nature not to be able to appreciate it, because they're girls, because they're girls, because they're women, and it's nothing really necessarily against them per se. I think it's very much sort of a masculine or manly, or man-ish thing to sort of think of legacy and heritage and your lineage and all that sort of stuff, because maybe it's because a part of being a man is that, like, you don't have that guarantee that you're gonna survive, that you're gonna be protected or provided for, that you're gonna have offspring, gonna have a lineage. Which isn't to say that it's guaranteed for women either. There's no guarantees for either gender, but far more women have been able to live longer lives and reproduce and have at least that genetic legacy than guys, And so when we look at our forefathers, and we're pointing out, like, these are the ones who came before us, who succeeded, who overcame, who built something, who passed down their genes and their knowledge and wisdom, and their pros and some of their cons as well. Not necessarily, it hasn't been all 150% great, but they passed on that bit of themselves, and they overcame all this. They survived. They were strong, they were capable, they were smart, they did what was necessary, and they made it. And maybe it's sort of a reflection back upon yourself that you obviously don't come from weak losers or wimpy folks, or people who are incapable of surviving or thriving, because obviously you're here and you're from them, and you can take lessons and inspiration from those who came before you, who did all they did. Like, I think about my ancestors who came over from Germany and Norway, for instance, on these rickety wooden ships. Some of them came over as early as the 1700s, before even the revolution. We're talking like the 1740s, 1750s, 1760s, and many of them settled on the frontier, going to an unknown land where there are all these diseases and the wildlife and the weather, and maybe even some hostile indigenous people. And I'm not saying that the indigenous folk didn't have a justification for being hostile. I mean, you don't gotta go in and talk about all the things that a lot of the colonists did. I think they're known facts. So I'm not getting into that. But you think about, like, those people. Like, I think about my ancestors who came over from Germany and Norway and going off into the frontier, and settling there, and all the things they had to do just to get over to here, and then to get established, and all the stuff they had to overcome, and going off into the unknown like that, and having to have that kind of faith in themselves and be that capable, competent, and strong, and driven to survive and to thrive. And maybe taking some inspiration for that, it's a good thing. And then there were those who came over a little bit later, when maybe the land had been explored, but it hadn't been, you know, fully settled or conquered, or, you know, even if it was the 1880s or the 1890s, like, it was still a tough life, you know, and they still had to overcome a lot of things, you know, to build a future, to build a foundation. And then I think about on my father's side, the ones who, you know, marched, well, they marched, sailed, you know, climbed and fought their way east with Alexander the Great, and they went, you know, all the way to the frontiers of India. And then some of them who stayed there, you know, their descendants, other ancestors of mine, you know, conquered further, you know, into, you know, India, and some, you know, further into, you know, nowadays Western China, made contact with the Chinese, you know, civilization way before everybody else, made contact with India, built an empire of their own, you know, and left a legacy of, you know, a new and surviving culture. And survived, you know, it honestly has survived all the way up to the present, which a lot of people don't know about. From, you know, northwestern India and, you know, Central Asia, that area, and, you know, all the great technology, science, mathematics, philosophy, literature, all that which they generated, things that they discovered. Think about them, you know, and even more recently, like my family who lived through genocide and survived that and overcame that, and then, you know, my dad coming over here and, you know, at like 21 and all on his own in a foreign country, and all the things he had to overcome to get to where he's at. And you know, I want to take inspiration from that. I want to continue that legacy and, you know, not give up and not throw in the towel and not be defeated, you know, completely and utterly. So trying to maintain that sort of state of mind and, you know, keep on striving forward, you know. So anyways, I think that's it for me right now. I just came out here to make this video. And, you know, in the future, topics may change as I take care of different problems, and, you know, I'm able to focus on more, you know, other things, maybe more substantial, maybe stuff of a different nature than finances or Nofap or education or whatever. So anyways, it's long enough of a ramble, and I'm gonna get on with the rest of the day. So anyways, thanks for watching, and I can't remember the guy's name. I think it's New Thought or New Thoughts. Nice to see you around again. You know, keep on keeping on, keep making those vlogs. I think I was watching like your newest one recently. I'll have to finish up watching it, but you know, thanks for the comment, support. Thanks, good to see you back. Same to Alex. You know, once I can get that whole game thing figured out, I'm more than willing to send it over. And what else? No, well, to anybody else out there who's watching my videos, you know, especially the folks leaving comments, thanks, and you know, I'll see you around. Okay, bye-bye.